On today's show, are the Clippers going to sign Chris Paul? Let's talk about it on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You were locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA. Been a Clipper fan for 20 years. Been covering the team for 5 years on my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, and 3 years right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Chris Paul. Is he going to come back to the Clippers? Why hasn't it happened yet? Does it make our team better? All the good stuff. CP3. Make sure you subscribe, of course, by the way, if I haven't said it already, to this YouTube channel. Let's get up to 8,000 subscribers, all things LA Clips, and of course, listen wherever you get your podcast. But Chris Paul, so I did an episode on this topic a couple weeks ago, but it's been really gaining steam the last couple of days. But all of a sudden, talk slowed down. Where do I even begin? I guess I'll start out with how I feel about Chris Paul. I was never bitter at Chris Paul. As I've aged, I don't love his game like I used to when I was a kid. I used to want to be CP3. Like, when he came to the Clippers, I would mimic him. I would buy his shoes. I used to do that little bit with your right hand between the legs, back to your right hand when you look behind you, like you were passing it between your legs. That he did against Utah. I used to always do that. So I loved Chris Paul. Like, I looked up to him, and I always felt like I shared his pros and his cons. Like, I would dribble too much as a kid. I would get whiny. Actually, no, I wouldn't whine at my teammates. I was just very passionate and emotional, but that was one thing I was actually pretty good about and I don't yell at my teammates like that. It has to be terrible for that to happen. Chris would just chew some guys out. But, I looked up to CP3. Nowadays, I mean, you know, I'm not a ball pounder guy anymore, because the reason why is because I was a ball pounder. That's why I'm so anti like the way CP3 and Harden kind of do things. So yes, I don't love watching CP3 anymore like I used to, but I still have that love for him because look what he did for the Clippers. He transformed this organization. As far as right now what he is, I mean, look, he averaged double-figure points every single season of his career until the Golden State season. Golden State was the weirdest fit for him. I know he actually wasn't bad necessarily for him, but he did not fit. Like, he was not what they needed. It was just another small old guard. It just didn't make sense. Playing an emotion system, like, he left immediately for a reason. With OKC, I think he actually liked it there, but Phoenix came around as a better chance for him to win. But every other place he's been at, it hasn't just been 1 year. And then last year, he played 82 games, which is like, oh my God. Do you know how many seasons besides last season he played 82 games? One. And he was 2015, which I think is the best Chris Paul. I think '08 you can argue because it was the pre-surgery version, but like, he was 22 years old. Like, I'm taking a little bit more of a seasoned 29-year-old, beating the Spurs in the first round. But anyway, I'm not even trying to revisit Lob City like that in this episode. But the point is, he played 82 games in that season, and the only other season he's played 82 games is this past season. And since he went on this like new diet thing, he's been getting injured so much less. He played 70 out of 72 games with the Thunder in 2019-20, which killed me. 70 out of 72 games with the Suns in 2021, which killed me again. And then in 2022, he missed just 17 games. And then 2023, he missed 23. And then 2024, 24. So I was like, okay, he's slowing down. And then 82 all of a sudden, like, started all 82 games last season. He averaged 9 points a game, 4 rebounds a game, and 7 assists. So 9, 4, and 7 to go along with a steal in 28 minutes of play on 43% from the field, 38 from 3, but now over half his shots are three-pointers at this age. He does not get in the paint like that. But he shot 92% from the foul line, which is his second highest in his career. So CP3, those are still like, and plus my eye test tells me that he's still good at some of the things he was always good at. He is a great pick and roll player. 9 and 7, like that's not bad. It's not like those are bad stats. And especially if we're talking about in a backup role for James Harden, like that's CP3 being a backup. I mean, for a team that wants to play the way that he wants to play, which is our team, isolation, slow, pick and roll, I think he could be great in that role. However, he has his limitations. He's not the defender he once was. People can pick on his size. He doesn't have this on his size. People could always pick on his size, but now he doesn't have that speed anymore. So, but here's the thing. I would still take CP3 defensively over Bogey, Norman Powell, or James Harden, if I'm being honest. But my view of it is this. With Chris Paul, do I think it makes us significantly better? No. Do I think it makes us worse? No, not really. I just think we don't need more slow and old. Like, we're going to be going to like a retirement home at this point. We might as well be playing our games at the Forum just because, I love the Forum, by the way. We're old. We're really old, and it's just doubling down on old and slow. It's going to be more stagnant offense, more pick and roll with everyone standing around. It's not going to be, and we're not getting a guy that can get up and down, a guy that could be a liability at times defensively. It's just, that's not great. But coming up, I'm going to talk about the ways that it can benefit us greatly and things that people might just not be looking at. But overall, actually, no, before I say that, I'm just going to say this. I don't care if it happens or not. Because as I said, it doesn't make us significantly better. I see it. They want to have a backup ball handler because they don't want to bring Ben Simmons back, and they're seeing it as CP3 or Ben Simmons. I absolutely think that Chris Paul, I did a little pump fake there with the coming up. Yeah, I have more to say. Chris Paul is better than Ben Simmons, even in he's going to be going into year 21. Oh my God. Year 21. I would take year 21 Chris Paul over this year 9 Ben Simmons. I know he was drafted. It should be year 10, but he was injured that first year. I would. He can shoot the ball. And he's confident. He's like CP3 is confident in who he is. You know what I'm saying? He's had a Hall of Fame career. Ben Simmons, no. So in that case, it's an upgrade. But I already presented the cons. You know what I'm saying? It's doubling down on old and slow. And I don't think we need more of that. But I don't think it's going to make us worse. You know what I'm saying? I think we're still getting an upgrade. And Chris Paul would be a solid backup. But I feel this way about it. If it doesn't happen, I'm not losing sleep over it at all. You know what I'm saying? It's an old CP3. Like I've been saying, because to me, until we make a consolidation trade to get rid of one of the guards that's kind of like, we have 2 6-men kind of players, Bogey and Norm. And the thing is, if we start one of them, now we have 2 minus defenders in our starting lineup. And how many championship teams that I can think of had 2 minus defenders in the starting lineup? Jamal Murray and Jokic is the first one that's going to be brought up. But they defended well in the playoffs. Like, I don't know what to, like, there's nothing I can say. Whereas Norm, Bogey, and James Harden didn't pass the test with that. So, yeah, I don't think that's going to work. And it's also Murray and Jokic versus, what was I saying? James Harden and Bogey or Norman Powell. Like, that's a difference. But the Warriors didn't have 2 minus defenders in their starting lineup in 2022. I mean, we can go down the list. Lakers and the Bucks didn't. The Raptors didn't. The Warriors in 2018. You could say Zaza and Steph, but Zaza wasn't really playing much. They put Iggy in immediately, or JaVale McGee, or Jordan Bell. I guess the Cavs. But again, they clutched up in the playoffs. Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love. Like, Kevin Love made huge defensive plays in Game 7 to win a championship. But the Cavs, I always say, are like the worst defensive team I've ever seen win a championship. I don't want to say worse, though. Actually, I shouldn't say that. The least good. But my point is, I want a consolidation trade to make it so that one of Norm or Bogey just accepts that 6-man role. We get a 4, slide Kawhi down to the 3, and then we have Chris Dunn or Derrick Jones Jr. start alongside Harden. But if that doesn't happen, then we don't need another guard to me. Because then We're definitely starting Chris Dunn again, which is going to, and I love Chris Dunn, but he's going to miss those open shots. Like, I don't think he's going to become a great shooter next season. Maybe he can get better, but marginally better. Shoot a slightly higher percentage from three. But is he going to be a guy that teams respect from distance? Absolutely not. So, yeah. I want him coming off the bench. And if we have him and Bogey coming off the bench, we don't need another guard coming off the bench. But because they don't want to do that, I think they're going to go with three guards in the starting lineup. Norm, Harden, or Bogey, Harden. I think it's going to be Norm, Harden, and Dunn. But if they go Norm, Harden, and Derek, I'm actually okay with that. Bogey and Chris Dunn, Nico, and Brooke Lopez. And then we'll see. Maybe a Jordan Miller, maybe a Kobe Brown. I wouldn't be totally opposed to that. But I think this is not the end. The Clippers are going to make another move. But coming up, we're going to talk about the pros of CP3. Oh, also, I keep forgetting this. Another pump fake. If it does happen, I'd be ecstatic because it's a feel-good story. Even though it's not the basketball I like to watch in 2025, because of the nostalgia, because of the emotional connection, because he's arguably the greatest Clipper of all time, I think number 2 at the worst, it's going to be special to have him back in the arena that he and Blake built, truthfully. It would just be such a feel-good story. And he would, oh man, it would make me like the team more. It would make me like the team more. And it would, he'd be my favorite player on the team instantly because it's freaking Chris Paul. It's freaking Chris Paul, man. Like, it's Clipper legend Chris Paul. He has his flaws, but he's our diva. And he did so much for this organization, and it would just be cool. It would be cool to bring him back and have him retire here in LA as a Clipper and have his longest tenure with any team be with the Clipper. Or not longest tenure, but most years with any team be with the Clippers. Because he's 6 years with New Orleans, 6 years with the Clippers. But coming up, what are the pros, basketball pros, to having CP3 in 2026? Going to be talking about that coming up. I got to tell you a little something about Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Was there a specific category, like takeout or subscriptions, that added up more than you expected? I mean, for me, I didn't realize I was still paying for like Apple TV. And I'm like, dude, I haven't watched Apple TV in months. And Monarch Money reminded me of that. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. All right. So, getting CP3 back for the 2025-26 season, I know a lot of, so I'm saying that if it happens, I would be ecstatic because it's Chris Paul, the nostalgia of it all. If it doesn't, not losing sleep over it at all. It's Chris Paul, year 21, 40 years old. But from a basketball perspective, there are some pros to this. He's an upgrade over Ben Simmons. He can actually shoot the ball. Okay? 38% from three, 92% from the line. You still have to go over the screen with him. So then he can get to that right elbow mid-range. Now you have a pick and pop big to make it even easier for him. I mean, how many times could you imagine? Brooke Lopez sets a screen for CP to get to his right. A little behind the back pass. Brooke Lopez pops a three. If you don't, you're letting CP3 get into the mid-range. But if you have Derek Jones Jr. on that baseline in that lineup, now you really got to make decisions. Who's helping? If you're staying attached to Brooke Lopez, are you switching that action? Because Brooke Lopez, then we can hopefully take advantage of a small. That would probably be what they would do. But still, look at the possibilities. Like CP3 is still a pick and roll maestro. We would have two of the best pick and roll players in the history of basketball. Even though CP3 is older, there's one thing he can still do. It's run pick and roll. He's going to be running 50 years old. I wonder what CP3 is going to look like in 10 years. Is he going to gain weight? He's always been a big guard, a pit bull kind of guard. But if he gains a bunch of weight, I don't know. I can imagine a kind of fat Chris Paul. But in 10 years, even if he's fat, he's still going to be able to run pick and roll, especially getting to that right hand. So I truthfully think that if we're talking about a guy to replace Ben Simmons and have Bogey still play off ball a little bit when he comes in and not be like the exclusive backup, basically him and Kawhi. When Ben Simmons didn't play, it was like him and Kawhi handling the ball handling duties when Harden was on the bench. And it didn't exactly look the best, but I thought partially that's down to we haven't really done this all season long with Bogey and Kawhi running the offense like that. I do think, though, if you're talking about having another pick and roll creator with Harden on the bench, there's no one better than a Chris Paul, honestly. And imagine if James Harden gets hurt. That's one thing we're not even considering. James Harden, we're so reliant on him because every team that gets James Harden becomes reliant on him. That's the way he forces you to play because he doesn't want to play off ball like that. And he doesn't catch and shoot threes with high frequency. He always does, a lot of times he does that pump fake, put it on the floor, make the shot tougher for him, or just holds it up, doesn't shoot it. That makes coaches be like, yeah, we don't want him off the ball. His strength comes from being on the ball. So then it makes you play a certain way. If he gets hurt, CP3 is the perfect guy to slide right in and give you a lot of what Harden gives you. Of course, he doesn't get downhill the same way. Of course, he's not the same ISO scorer, but he still will create some decent shots for you, and hopefully you still have Kawhi, and that's when you lean into Zoo. Zubats could always be more looked at, could always take more shots. Kawhi could always get more touches, although with how much you want to manage his body. But Norman Powell has shown that he could step up and get more touches. So, with our defense, if our defense is still great, it keeps us in games. And I think if we have a Chris Paul, it would not be a terrible idea. It's not just nostalgia. I think there are some basketball reasons for this as well. It also gives us a voice, a leader, someone that's a little bit more vocal, which we need to kick up the ass sometimes. And CP3 does that. And look, it'd be a decent chance for Chris Paul to try to win a ring. Definitely better than San Antonio or Golden State the last 2 years. So, I don't know. It feels like a feel-good story. The thing is, why hasn't it happened yet? Because they were saying there's some interest, but these were coming from some guy on Twitter that's account is Ari. I don't know how reliable that is. Let me see if there's. I think Chris Haynes also reported that it's down to the Clippers, Suns, and Bucks. But with the Bucks, with Damian Lillard being waived, they could want a starting point guard. The only thing, I heard Chris Paul in this interview with Tony Parker last year say, if I'm moving away from my family, I got to be playing. So the thing is, though, LA, he would make that sacrifice because what's his name goes to Campbell Hall, little Chris. I know that because he played our 8th grade team 2 years ago. So Chris, if he came back home to LA, he would be with his family, so maybe he would be down to take a backup role. So that's what makes me think that maybe the hesitation is from us. Maybe we don't want to get older, and that's why it hasn't happened. Or does he? What about his relationship with James Harden? I know it didn't end very well with them. Are they cool now? Then there's the Suns, where it's like, they probably want to just start Booker, Green, and I was thinking Beal. But if Beal gets bought out, there's rumors that he might get bought out and the Clippers might be interested in him. I don't even want it. That might be another episode in itself. But I don't know if they're going to buy him out. It's a lot of money to pay him. But as of now, I would think Beal, Booker, and Green. But Chris Paul, Booker, and Green, I wouldn't. I think they would do something like that. So maybe he's weighing those opportunities. Does he want to go start in Phoenix? I don't know. Are they going to offer that? So it's just, I'm not seeing anything. Someone said Chris Paul wants to be a starter. Tim Reynolds from the Associated Press says Chris Paul wants to be a starter, which is part of the reason why he hasn't made up his mind yet. It says Clippers are still very hopeful he picks them, but I don't know if that's the case. Because he said, if I'm going to be away from my family, in the Spurs interview, his own words, if I want to be away from my family, I got to be playing. But he would be with his family. So even if he's not playing as much, but maybe he thinks they're really not going to play him with Harden on the floor. So then he's not going to play that much at all, which maybe he wants to just play a little bit more. I don't know. What does he want? I think that's a big question. Because as of now, I'm looking at all the reports. It all comes down to, so Chris Haynes says, there's a reputable source. Chris Haynes says Bucks have registered interest in him. I'm told he wants to stay closer to home. Clippers and Suns are still in play. This Ari character, though, whoever that is, was saying that he was close to reaching an agreement, nearing an agreement. Nothing has happened. We're on Thursday. So I don't know. There's something going on. If I had to guess, he's not going to end up with us. But let me know what you think in the comments below. But coming up, going to talk about the fear of you not having a potential backup point guard and the age conversation. All right. So CP3, is it a feel-good story? Here's the thing. The fans that are bitter at Chris Paul, man, I have to say, if you don't like things about him, fine. But like James Harden does a lot of the things that Chris Paul does. He's just not as emotional when he cries for fouls. But I mean, good Lord, they do a lot of the same things. Chris Paul, however, with the Clippers, gave us the years that changed this franchise forever. Like, there's no denying that when Chris arrived, it became a winning team. And I don't know, we probably would have made the playoffs some years with Blake as the number one, but there's no way we instantly become a playoff team 6 straight years. First time we had ever made 3 straight playoffs as the LA Clippers with Chris Paul. And the first year we beat a Memphis team that had just beaten the Spurs the previous year. And he arrived, had big playoff games at home. You know, that stuff matters. And he literally he and Blake, the one thing I'll just have to say about them, they were such good ambassadors of the franchise. You would see them in advertisements. You would see them representing the Clippers, though, at events. You know, they were so easy to market because they were such personalities. But I think that's partially why they clashed. They're both such personalities. And Harden, you see Harden in ads. You see Kawhi in those New Balance ads. He's usually not saying anything, though. I love that ad, though, before the season about, I'm coming back. It's just a matter of time. Those are cool. But with CP3, it was so much more of a thing. Everyone, he's just such a different personality. I don't need to get into specifics. Everybody knows. You know, and that has nothing to do with the basketball. I'm just talking about the way he embraced being the face of the Clippers, and they wanted to win so badly for this franchise, and embraced being the little brother, and, you know, we're going to be better than the Lakers, and we're going to be the talk of the town. And they were. In 2015, you know, all eyes were on the Clippers in LA because the Lakers weren't doing anything. You know, same with 2014. Damn, we were killing them. So that was a special era, you know, and it was such exciting basketball. The Clippers had never sold out like that year in, year out. They'd never had, it was just amazing. So Chris Paul, I have so much appreciation for him. If you don't appreciate him, that's crazy to me. And then he never, the only time you could say he kind of went out sorry, he didn't try, was Game 7 against the Jazz. But if we watch that game back, I was at that game. But I think if we watch that game back, it was more about he's 6 foot. If he's the number one scorer, he should not be the number one scorer on a championship team, right? Or even a team that wants to, I guess you could say, make it out the first round. But that team wasn't built around Chris Paul being the number one scorer the way maybe New Orleans was. We didn't have Blake in that game. And DJ and JJ, very one-dimensional. So it's just all down to Jamal and Austin. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, that's not going to work. Jamal probably could have been a little better. But he didn't play very well in that game. But one thing I could say about Chris is he never quit. He never went out sorry. In 2014, yeah, he choked. He definitely did. 2015, you can argue, you know, his lack of size made it so that we just didn't get enough big buckets in that fourth quarter of Game 6. But he also was dealing with a little injury. Overall, I think we should be appreciative of Chris. The tunnel incident was, you know, it's water under the bridge. We still had Glenn Rivers as a coach. He had a problem with Glenn. He had a problem with Blake. He had a problem with Austin. But there's still plenty of people at Lob City that love Chris Paul, like Matt Barnes, Jamal Crawford, JJ Redick. I think the Phoenix Suns series is something that hurts people. And first of all, they also want to talk about his comments, you know, his comments about the culture of our team at the time. and he was saying that we don't hang out, we don't do team dinners. That's because you and Blake were beefing. Like, they were beefing, and I think that was a little bit whack of him to talk like that. But also for him to say that if we're not competing with Golden State, what are we doing? That was a relevant point. We had Glenn Rivers employed as our president of basketball operations and the coach, which is insane power. And CP3 didn't like that because he didn't trade Austin Rivers for Carmelo, and he paid Austin Rivers. So I can understand that. I don't like daddy ball at the rec center. I sure as hell wouldn't like it in the NBA. So I understand Chris Paul's point, and he realized he can't be the number one option. He was trying to win a ring. So I don't blame him at all. And plus, even though it was for his financial benefit, he let us trade him, which gave us Lou, Bev, and Trez and ushered in the new era. And it's the reason we have Kawhi and Paul George, or I almost said Paul George right now, but why we have Kawhi, because we showed that we could compete. We showed that we weren't a bad team. And that was Lou, Bev, and Trez. So we have CP3 to thank for a lot of things. Of course, that 2021 Western Conference Finals stings, but, he was doing it for his team. What can I say? And he said something at the end of that, and we were just so bitter at the time we didn't hear it, but he said, this is, home for me and these fans and all that. So it would be an amazing story to have Chris back. Clipper Nation, we got to need you. I remember he used to always say that going back to home for a big playoff game. But here's the thing about Chris Paul. Let's get real for a sec. He's going to make us older and smaller. James Harden, Norm, Bogey, Chris Paul, 4- defenders. We're going to be so slow. Teams are going to be able to run us off the court. We're going to have real problems rebounding. It's going to be harder to switch everything because teams are going to try to pick on him sometimes. Like, it's just another guy to pick on. He's not going to really get rebounds, I don't think. If Zubac gets pulled out of the paint, it's just another guy that won't be able to do stuff on the boards, won't be able to be rotating at the rim with any resistance. So there are problems there. Now, here's the thing. Let's say we don't get CP. I said Bogey and Chris Dunn handling the bench unit. That was what I wanted. If we start Chris Dunn, though, even if we make a trade for a 4, if we start Chris Dunn, then it's going to be Bogey and Derek. So we're going to need a ball handler besides Bogey, because it can't just be Bogey and no one else. And it seems like a lot of people are saying, did you see Bogey in the playoffs? His handle was so bad. I honestly, remember I was at a watch party for a lot of those road games. I might need to go back and see. Was Bogey losing the ball? Like, just coming up the court? Like, was he struggling? I don't remember. You know what I'm saying? But I don't remember having a problem too much with Bogey's turnovers. I more so remember just him missing shots. You know what I'm saying? Shots that he had seen him make throughout those last couple of weeks. So, are you comfortable with Bogey handling the ball as the primary guy when Harden's out on the bench? Like, he and Kawhi. Let's say we should stagger Harden and Kawhi next season. We're not going to go all bench. But see, if we had it, let's say we did have Chris Paul, CP3, Bogey, Derek Jones, Nico, and Brook Lopez, I think that lineup could do some damage against bad teams especially. But do you trust Bogey? For me, see, I was thinking Bogey and Chris Dunn because I love Chris Dunn, but I just don't think he can start on a team that wants to make fans believe they have a chance of winning a title. It's just the offense it's not good enough. It's not good enough. But I love Chris Dunn. Hypothetically, if Chris Dunn could shoot 36% from 3 next year, then my tune would change. I say, hell yeah, I love Chris Dunn. He makes such a huge impact in the game. And his defense and his energy might just be enough to say, you know what? We can't bench this guy. So I think the Clippers are going to look for a backup point guard. People are talking about Malcolm Brogdon. I would love Malcolm Brogdon. I just have injury concerns with him. Remember, we almost got Malcolm Brogdon before Harden. But anyway, that's it for me in this one, guys. So I would love to have Chris Paul back for nostalgia. For basketball, I think that helps a little bit, but it has its cons as well. Does it make us better? I think a little bit. But it doesn't move the needle in either way, so I'm not tripping over it. But hey, it would be a feel-good story. What do you think about it? It's not, hey, I'll tell you one thing. It's not going to make me enjoy watching the team play more. It'll make me, that's such a contradiction. It'll make me like the team more, but not watching it more. Because that's it with Chris Paul. Like, I like him, but I don't love the way he plays anymore. Like, I've grown out of liking the way that doesn't appeal to me anymore. Because I just think it's like closeted selfishness. Because he always wants to control things. And because he's so good at creating shots, he always wants to create shots. But anyway, You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Dime Dropper Pod. Subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, where I did a video on the latest free agency moves all around the league, including the Lakers, Clippers, Atlanta Hawks, and etc. Just go subscribe there. But of course, subscribe right here to Locked On Clippers. Hit the notification bell so you know every single time we post a video. And of course, you can listen wherever you get your podcasts. The age-old proverb continues. Go Clippers.